single item that I will use is coming from the pantry. We will be spending no more than $10 a week. And this is so that my friends and family who during these hard economic times are forced to go to the pantry can learn that they can have the most gourmet, elegant, wonderful meals to share with friends, family, and myself. Because if I'm gonna cook it, I'm gonna be there to eat it too. So we get to really just enjoy friend, family, and food. And I'm just really, truly excited. Today I'm going to make for you something that my mom's been making for me for years. So it's a family treat, and I enjoyed it as a child. I still enjoy it as an adult. I don't cook it as much, but I do cook it. And it's called unstuffed cabbage. They gave me everything. When my girlfriend bought the bag over and asked me to cook it, she bought me everything. So she bought me 2 wonderful heads of cabbage. I only cut up 1. I cut it in quarters, and I'm going to show you how to cut that a little bit later. They gave us some wonderful ground beef. It's just ground beef. I mean, you know, you don't know what name it is when it comes from the butcher, so it says ground beef. And I'm going to saute the ground beef and add the cabbage and make this wonderful unstuffed cabbage. They gave us carrots, fresh carrots. I mean, they're crisp, they're firm, they're fresh produce. And I'm sure a lot of times my friends and family don't even buy fresh produce, and the food pantry gives it to you. They gave us some wonderful banana peppers, which I'm going to slice up for a little bit of heat. I did cut it in half, and you know, it was a little wilted and everything, but it's fresh. You know, it still has enough firmness, and it'll do exactly what I need it to do as far as seasoning the food. I did, however, ask her to buy a green pepper or a bell pepper, whichever one you refer to it by. And that's the only thing that we purchased out of everything that I'm going to be cooking for this first meal. Yams, the only thing I'm going to really be adding is sugar and a little bit of extra nutmeg and cinnamon. And everything else is here. So let's get started and do our pantry meals. I'm going to move all the things out of the way that I don't need for this particular dish, and then I'll bring them back as needed. First off, like I told you, I started cutting the cabbage. So we're going to start by making and creating our wonderful, wonderful unstuffed cabbage. I cut the cabbage originally in quarters. So by me cutting the cabbage in quarters, I still have 1/4 left, just because I want to show you how to exactly cut it. So all you're going to do is, once it's cut in quarters, it's rinsed. So you do have to wash all your fruits and vegetables. Then I just take my big old knife, make sure it's firmly on the table. I have a clear cutting board on the table, so there is something here to protect the table. And all I do is cut it so it's big enough and crisp enough to eat. We're not going to overcook the cabbage or do anything like that. I'm going to place all of this in the bowl, like so. The green pepper that I bought, or the bell pepper, whichever you like to call it, is not only for color, because cabbage is so white. I like my food to have some color to it, you know, presentation, just from being in the restaurant, and just because growing up, you know, you like eating food with like nice, pretty, vibrant colors. I know a lot of children don't really eat carrots anymore. I'm like, are you serious? I used to love carrots. They're all bright and pretty and orange. How could you not enjoy carrots? Right now I'm slicing the banana pepper. Again, I took out all the seeds and everything, and I'm just slicing it in little bitty thin strips. I put it on top of each other, and I'm just cutting it in strips like so. I do have an onion. The onion was also given in the food basket, the pantry basket. And I'm just going to cut it. First, I took off the outer skin of the onion. I rinsed it. I'm cutting it down the middle in half. And then I'm going to cut it again. Then I'm going to cut it again for you. I like, for soups and stews and meals like this, I don't like dice it or cut it too fine. You know, I usually cut it in like real big rustic chunks. You know, there's no, you know, uniformity to it. Just, you know, it's really just for flavor. And I'm going to use a whole small onion or medium onion. I have a nice green pepper or bell pepper. This is not for heat. It's just truly for color and flavor. It has such a wonderful flavor. You can eat it raw. You can cook it. I just love the taste. Now I'm chopping up the carrots. I'm just cutting them up in thin little round rings. The carrots are truly for color. I'm going to actually cut them again. We do want a little bit of crunch. So the bigger pieces I'll cut in half again. But I'm just really just adding them truly for color. You might not want to cut them in hot dog rings, and you can cut them at a little angle. We have cut up the carrots and all of the vegetables, so I'm going to push those to the side. I'm going to put those to the forefront. Next, I'm going to actually take the knife and cut this tube of ground beef. Let's see, what type of facts does it tell you? Actually, this is, ooh, okay, it says 100% ground beef, and it contains 15% fat. So it's 100% ground beef, but it's 15% fat. So like usually a lot of times when I buy burgers and stuff, I buy 70-30. This is like really great. It's like a high content of beef and no fat. So I probably won't have to do much draining with it. And just put it in my skillet. Okay, let me get something. I'm gonna turn it on. Because I apologize, I did not turn it on. Usually you have your skillet warm, so it'll take a second to warm up. And it can warm with that because this beef is actually, they gave it to us frozen solid, so it's still solid. And one of the things I tell all of my friends just in teaching them how to cook is that you can cook with frozen meat. You know what I mean? It's better sometimes to cook with frozen meat than trying to defrost it and everything. So I'm showing them, you know, this ground beef is still kind of frozen solid, the outer parts, and it'll be just as fast. Once I heat up the skillet. Ground beef is so lean. There's really no fat in the skillet or anything. What I'm showing you is the fact that all I'm doing is taking this piece of frozen meat and just scraping it. I'm just turning it around, and as heat hits it, it cooks, and all I do is scrape it a little bit. So far I put Worcestershire, black pepper, and garlic. The reason I'm only using these simple seasonings is because every week we'll buy a different seasoning and experiment with it. This is granulated garlic. I don't use garlic salt. I use garlic powder or granulated garlic because you want salt to do its own thing, and you don't want salty food. Salty is not tasty. A little bit more garlic because garlic's good for you too. And then this is seasoned salt. I tell all of my girlfriends, just buy seasoned salt. You don't really have to. Table salt, use it for the table. Seasoned salt, use it for your cooking. Because then you're not forced to buy a lot of seasonings, because seasoned salt does have a little bit of sugar in it, has a little bit of paprika in it, it has powder, garlic powder. It has the same things I use, but the highest concentration is the salt. So it will give your food that enhanced or that salt taste. And as you see, this ground beef is like totally cooked. It hasn't taken me any time to cook it. It's taken like less than 10 minutes to cook that whole little round thing of ground beef. And again, the ground beef was frozen. It has separated completely. It's nice and brown. I'm gonna actually put the top on it, so this last little piece is giving me the flux. It can do its thing, and it can go ahead and cook. I'll turn this down a little bit because I did have it cooking on very high. And then once this heat is all like covered up, and you know, I'm showing that it's kind of steaming and cooking at the same time. So, you know, it brings up the heat of the food, which will also help to do that. To the beef, I'm going to add the carrots. The reason I'm adding the carrots first is because the carrots take a little bit, you know, like I do have them kind of big, and I know some people don't like really crunchy vegetables, which I do. I'm going to add those first. Again, they're for color, but you want them to be, you know, carrots take the longest to cook. So I'll put this on, and I'll put the lid on for approximately 2 minutes. They're so pretty and orange, and look how they like contrast the beef. They just look really nice. Okay, since these carrots are getting a little bit softer, I'm going to add the onions. And just start taking them apart a little bit. Oh my God. People actually eating vegetables. They're putting these vegetables in the diet. Yes. Fresh produce. Ooh. Thank you, Chicago Food Depository. This is nice. This is really nice. It does. These depositories, you know, I'm calling it Chicago Food Depository. Myself and my friend, we actually live in the south suburbs. And so these food pantries and the Greater Chicago Food Depository, which is the largest, it distributes to all local Chicago and suburban areas. I mean, west, north, south, east. They say there's no east side. I grew up on the east side, okay? You cannot get any further east without hitting the lake than Jeffrey Manor, okay? So I lived on the east side. Grew up on the east side. So there is the east side of Chicago. South Chicago, that is the east side. Commercial is the east side. We lived on the east side. So when people say, ain't no east side, there's a big east side. Okay. And I'll let this cook for about 5 minutes or so, just so these carrots again can soften up, and then we'll come right back. Now we're going to start adding the cabbage and the bell peppers. The reason I added the bell peppers and the cabbage last is because, again, I told you that the carrots are a little bit firmer. They take a little bit longer to cook. So right now they've been cooking about 7 minutes. They have water in them. All these vegetables have water because they're fresh. And so I didn't have to add any water to the ground beef or anything. It's not sticking, it's not overcooking. It's kind of like a meatloaf. You really just don't care that you're eating like very well done ground beef. Okay. And then I just start taking the cabbage apart. Just a little bit. I'm just continuously adding the cabbage. As I'm adding the cabbage, however, I am going to add a little bit of seasoning to the top of this cabbage. And I'm just going to add the original seasonings that I said are very important to all kitchens. So as I teach my girlfriends to, I'm like, if you have these staple seasonings, you will be okay. And that is seasoned salt, black pepper, and garlic. Everything else we're going to buy. Just once a week, we're going to add like one new seasoning. Because I really, really love cumin and cabbage, but I'm not going to add it today because I want to teach. I don't want to just cook a meal. I really want to teach and just show how good the flavors are with very minimal seasonings. So we'll add a seasoning every week, and that way you won't spend a lot of money, and you'll just be helping to create your own pantry at home. Again, this was the rest of my garlic. And I'm adding all of this to taste because I love a lot of garlic. I love the heat from the pepper. But again, remember I added the banana pepper. And sometimes those banana peppers do have a little bit of heat. The yellow peppers or banana peppers. So I don't want to add too much. I'm adding a little bit more seasoned salt. Like so. And I'm going to cover it up. And we will see not what the magic of television does, but honey, what steam does to cabbage. So we're just going to let this sit on top for about 5 minutes. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to see what this cabbage does. And in 5 minutes, I'm going to say 7. I'm going to give it 7. I have my oven on low, or it says number 2. Here's what the flame looks like. Very low flame. We will do this for about 7 minutes. I'll come back and I will just show you what this meal just does. It's just a wonderful one-pot meal, and it, you know, the steam is just going to do wonders. So take a little break and I will be right back.